Kính thưa quý vị, và ngay lúc này đây chúng tôi sẽ xin được bắt đầu phần tham luận trong hội thảo Năng lượng xanh và phát triển kinh tế bền vững. Ban tổ chức rất vui mừng khi chúng tôi gửi lời mời tới các tổ chức quốc tế và đã nhận được sự tham gia rất nhiệt tình. Và ngay sau đây xin được trân trọng giới thiệu và kính mời ông John Kerry, cựu Ngoại trưởng Hoa Kỳ, Chủ tịch Quỹ Hòa bình Quốc tế Kerry là chủ trì danh dự của buổi hội thảo hôm nay sẽ có bài phát biểu với chủ đề lựa chọn nào cho Việt Nam, nhiệt điện hay năng lượng tái tạo. Xin trân trọng kính mời ông. And now we would like to invite Mr. John Kerry. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great privilege for me to be able to be here, to be back in Vietnam, a place I have traveled to many, many times, and to share with you some thoughts about this challenge of energy production. But let me just begin my comments by saying what a terrific concept this is, and I want to congratulate Minister Bing for his leadership, for the Central Economic Commission. I congratulate all of the members of the Politburo, of the Central Committee of various ministries who've come here and who have organized this terrific conference this morning. There couldn't be a better time, and there couldn't be a better topic for us to wrestle with. And I want to try to just talk to you very practically about this issue of renewables versus coal and the choices that we have with respect to the future, not just of Vietnam, not just of the region, but of this planet. We're in trouble. I can't put it any other way. I was involved as a United States Senator in the Rio Conference in 1992. And in Rio, countries came together and we began to say we have to do something about climate change. It was a voluntary program. And unfortunately, when it was voluntary, people took the easiest way out. They took what they knew. They took what they were familiar with. And the biggest familiarity was fossil fuel. Coal, oil, gas. And over the next 20 years, scientists began to do more and more work. And those scientists produced facts. Not theory, not conjecture, but facts that are accepted by scientists all across this planet. And those scientists have agreed that human beings, we people, are contributing to the climate change of this planet, and that we are putting life itself at risk. Now, these are facts. I've lived with them. We live with them all around the world today. We have climate refugees in the world today. People who are uprooted from their homes and have to leave because water disappears, because their food cannot be produced, because the ability to live day to day is fought over by one tribe or one country and another country. And the fact is that for years now, we have been working to try to figure out what is the best energy use, what is the best way for us to grow our economies, but to do it in a responsible way. Last year, as Secretary of State, I went to the Arctic with the Foreign Minister of Norway, and I went to the Antarctic, and I saw what the scientists were telling me is happening to the huge ice sheet, in some places 3 miles deep. That ice sheet is now unstable. And we saw an enormous portion of that ice sheet break off last year and flow out into the ocean where it will melt and contribute to sea level rise. We are seeing sea level rise today, already have an impact. In an American city, in Miami, which you've all heard of, the mayor is having to elevate the roads and pump out water on a sunny day because of high tide. In my hometown, we have a seawall, and at regular high tide on a sunny day, now the high tide comes up and over the seawall. So we're looking at the potential of spending billions of dollars in order to address the concern of climate change. The storms that we had last year in America, the first hurricane in recorded history with sustained winds over 185 miles an hour for 24 hours. Harvey, the hurricane that hit Houston, carried more water in it in 5 days than they get in years. It was a once in 25,000 year event. The problem is we are seeing once in 25,000 year events, once in 500 year events, once in 100 year events, every other year now. And the reason this is happening is we have not made smart choices about energy. So let me just share with you very quickly that the damage, by the way, we spent $310 billion on storm damage last year in America. That's a record. Here we are struggling to find $100 billion that can go to the Global Green Climate Fund, and yet $310 billion just goes to fix up the problems that come because we haven't done the things ahead of time that we should be doing. Now, Vietnam is an amazing country. I've gotten to know it well since I began the efforts with Senator John McCain in 1990 to normalize relations, to end the embargo, to begin to build a relationship between the United States and Vietnam. And here we are in the year 2018 with a strong relationship, as strong as the relationship has been at any time, I think. But we have an ability now to work together to do something unique. I want you to think about it. Coal is the single biggest contributor to global greenhouse gases. Coal. Coal is the dirtiest fuel there is. Last year, Hanoi had 139 days where the air quality of Hanoi was below the international accepted standard. Dangerous air quality. There are literally, 23,000 people or so of Vietnam who die every year because of the particulates that come into their lungs and they get cancer or emphysema or another disease. You have to decide what the value of that is, but we don't have to do that. All across the world, countries are moving away from coal. Last year in the United States of America, 75% of the new electricity that came online in our country came from solar in America. You know what coal was? 0.2% was coal. Financial institutions are increasingly not going to fund coal. And you're seeing the major international financial institutions make the wise decision that we cannot continue to contribute to global greenhouse gases at the rate that we are. Now, let me be very clear to all of you. I'm not an alarmist. I believe we can solve this problem. The solution to climate change is called energy policy. And the solutions are available today. We don't have to wait for 10 or 15 or 20 years in order to find out how we're going to solve this problem. We just need to make good government decisions now that invest in the future. And what are those good government decisions? Well, I know that your government, I've met with your prime minister before. I met yesterday with ministers, with Minister Bing, with others. And I know your government wants to move to a different energy base. What you want to know is that you can do it in a way that can keep your economy growing and provide for a smooth energy grid that provides adequately for the energy of your country. I'm here to tell you today, firmly and clearly, that Vietnam is in a unique position to be able to make a better choice. Right now, your energy plan, you have 26 coal-based plants. You have 20 of them around Hanoi. You're building 15. And the 15 that are being built are somewhat behind schedule, but they're being built. When you build a coal-fired power plant, you're looking at a 30-year expenditure. The capital that you wrap up in that is for 30 years into the future. And my friends, that doesn't make sense in 2018. It doesn't make sense to commit capital for 30 years to something that's going to make the environment worse, hurt your citizens, and is not the choice that you have to make. Vietnam is uniquely positioned. Let me tell you why. You have assets that were given to you by nature, unlike most other countries. 45% of your energy grid today is hydro. You have an incredible ability to use hydro to balance your energy sources. You also have about currently 14 gigawatts of your energy is coal-based, and that's the biggest base of your energy today. Here's the problem. The current plan in Vietnam is looking at increasing that coal over the next few years. You'll add another 10 gigawatts of coal-based energy by 2020, and by 2035, your plan is to add up to 50 gigawatts of coal-based energy. I am here to tell you today, you do not need to do that. It is not a wise decision. It is possible to make a different set of choices that will work far more effectively for the people of Vietnam and far more effectively for your energy base. Now, what is that? If you take your solar capacity, and if you take your wind capacity, and you add it to your gas capacity, and your hydro, and you go out to the marketplace and create an investment which can be outside of your budget of your country, you will have an ability to be able to invest in the creation of a balanced approach to energy, which is solar, wind, and hydro. When the sun is not providing adequate energy, you have hydro you can draw from. And when the wind is a balance, we are absolutely convinced. We have McKinsey Company here that we've been working with. We've looked very carefully at Vietnam's last 10 years of energy use. And we've looked at it by the hour, every single day. And we've looked at it going 10 years forward. And we are convinced that if Vietnam were to open up a different policy and start to build out solar and build out wind and do it in a holistic way so that you are building a system, not a patchwork, not a piece over here and a piece over here, and then they fight for 3 years to get permission or find the tariff, but you have a system that approaches it. You can have a balanced approach to energy that makes Vietnam a leader in the world, that is a model for other nations, and that is a far smarter investment for Vietnam over the course of the next 40, 50 years. Now, it is critical, obviously, that we do this. Let me just share with you quickly. I want to address a fundamental belief that is unfortunately not accurate. Coal is not less expensive than solar and wind. And it is particularly not less expensive when you add up all the downside costs of coal. When you look at the transportation costs, you look at what happens to the land for the mining, you look at what happens to the people who get black lung disease from the mining, you look at what happens to your air quality, you look at what happens to the storms. If you did an accurate accounting from a business point of view of all of the costs of coal, it's way more expensive than clean energy, than solar. Now, right now, China is the biggest builder of solar capacity. China is not building more power plants if they don't have to. They're putting solar in place. But guess what? They're selling you their coal. What you need to do is make a different decision. Today, other countries around the world are making that decision. Malaysia is targeting 11% by 2020 renewables. Thailand, 40% by 2036. India is doubling its 175 gigawatts by 2022. Indonesia, 23% by 2025. France, 23% by 2020. Sweden, 100% renewable and electricity by 2040. In the UN and Germany, 40% by 2025 and 80% by 2050 renewables. The point I'm trying to make is that the world is moving in a different direction. Vietnam has an opportunity right now to make a fundamental shift that will work more effectively financially. It will be cheaper. You will save billions of dollars off your budget, and your people will be happier because they will breathe better air and be confident that you are acting in the interests of the future. I just will leave you with a couple of thoughts. In the doing of this, you will create somewhere in the vicinity, if you do this in a serious way, about 500,000 jobs will be created here in Vietnam. And the fastest growing job in America today, I want you to know, is solar installer and wind turbine technician. Those are the fastest growing jobs in the United States. Now, some of you may say, well, here you are, John Kerry, you're the former Secretary of State, and the current government in America has pulled back from the Paris Agreement. Yes, they made that announcement. But what you may have missed is that at the same time that they made that announcement, governors and mayors all across America made a different announcement. Jerry Brown of California, Governor Cuomo of New York, Governor Baker of my state, Massachusetts, all these governors came together and said, we're not pulling out. We're not getting out of Paris. We're going to continue to do what we think is the responsible thing for the country and for the world. And so the fact is that 90 mayors in the United States, the mayor of New York, the mayor of Los Angeles, of Boston, of Chicago, of San Francisco, of Miami, of Washington, are all committed at the local level to live up to the Paris Agreement. Now, I negotiated the Paris Agreement for the United States in Paris, and I went to China and negotiated the agreement with China 2 years before that, which brought China into a cooperative effort in order to be able to change this dynamic. So I have some experience in this, and I hope enough credibility to say to you very, very respectfully, I know your leaders want to move in this direction. What they want to know is, how do we do it? Can we afford it? How do we get the money? Where will the investment come from? How can we do this in a way that doesn't diminish the growth of our country? And I am convinced that there are plans that we've looked at and other ways to do this that will guarantee that without missing an economic beat, without losing any of your standard of living, without reducing your ability to be competitive, without reducing your growth, you can move to a massive commitment to alternative and renewable energy, together with your hydro and your gas, that will make Vietnam a leader in the world. I think this is an easy choice, not a hard one. I think it's a choice of common sense, basic economics, basic environmental and human policy. And it's important for us to lead. Why is it so important? I'll tell you why. The goal in Paris was to keep the warming of the Earth at 2 degrees centigrade, and 1.5 if it was possible. Well, guess what? We are about to be at 1.5 right now. And we are nowhere near reducing the levels we need, and we're already seeing what's happening with ice, with water, with fire, with storms. That's at 1.5. What happens when we get to 2, which we're on track to do? But more concerning, what happens when we get to 4 degrees, which is what we are currently on track to do? A lot of leaders won't tell you that. Paris doesn't get the job done. What we did in Paris was try to send a signal to the marketplace, so the marketplace would know that countries were going to begin to invest in alternative and renewable. And by doing that, we thought more investment would flow, and that would create the technology revolution that ultimately will help us solve the problem. My friends, that's exactly what's happening. That is what's happening. Last year, for the first time in history, more money was spent on alternative and renewable energy, on research and development, than on fossil fuels for the first time in human history. And the result is that today, there's a 75% reduction in the cost of solar. There's about a 45% reduction in the cost of wind. And we're seeing people embrace these technologies, which will move the technology curve even faster. So I hope everybody here will listen carefully to the panels. You have a saying, "Kochi Tinyen," I think, which sort of means where there's a will, there's a way. What's been lacking so far is the political leadership. What's been lacking is the decision-making that is common sense. We know the facts, we know the science, we know what is happening. So I hope Vietnam will take advantage of this conference and advantage of its 8th energy plan that people are now beginning to work on, and see the virtue, see the benefit of moving rapidly towards a very different energy base. And I just say to you, here's the great benefit. If you have a system with enough solar, which you have abundant sun, you have amazing wind, you have an ability to, I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but the sun in 1 hour and less provides enough energy that it would support everything we do that needs energy on this earth for an entire year. Less than an hour of the sun. The problem is not that we don't have energy. The problem is we don't harvest it like a farm. We don't collect the energy and use it the way we could. So I believe we have a terrific opportunity here to change the direction of the world. And I know that Vietnam, what you have done in these last years, in growing your economy and raising the standard of living of your people, of creating this energetic, unbelievable economy that you have, your country has an ability to set an example to the rest of the world. And my hope is that you'll take advantage of that. Thank you very much.
Great thanks to Mr. John Kerry. Vâng, như Ngài John Kerry có nói, có chí thì nên. Where there is a will, there is a way. And we hope that in order to make our own way towards sustainable energy, we really need the support from all the investors, the stakeholders, and all the related parties.